Captain Ibrahim Traoré stood in the heart of the beast, surrounded by the cold, humming lifeblood of a new digital empire. He was inside the brand-new Pan-African data hub, a gleaming glass and steel behemoth on the outskirts of Ouagadougou. The official ceremony had ended hours ago. The international press, the smiling executives from the tech giant Omnilink, and the cheering crowds were all gone. Now, in the dead of night, only the whisper of a million cooling fans and the rhythmic blinking of server lights remained. And Ibrahim Traoré was not satisfied. Something had felt wrong all day. The CEO of Omnilink, a charismatic billionaire named Julian Thorne, had spoken of digital empowerment and a gift to Africa. But as Traoré watched him on stage, he saw a flicker of something else in the man's eyes, the predatory glint of a hunter, not a philanthropist. It was a look Ibrahim Traoré had seen many times before in the eyes of those who came to Africa offering gifts with hidden price tags. "Sir, the facility is operating at peak efficiency," said the French site manager, a man named Pelletier, who nervously escorted him. "As you can see, everything is exactly as specified in our agreement." Ibrahim Traoré stopped in the middle of a long, cold corridor flanked by rows of server racks. He placed his hand on one of the black metal cabinets. It was vibrating with a low, powerful thrum. "The agreement specifies a data storage and processing facility, Monsieur Pelletier, but the power consumption readings for this sector are 40% higher than the rest of the facility. Why?" The manager paled slightly. "Ah, that would be the advanced cooling systems, Mr. President, for the primary backup servers, a technical matter." Traoré's eyes narrowed. He was a soldier, not a tech engineer, but he understood logistics and power. He had studied the facility's blueprints for weeks. "Show me the blueprints for this sector," he commanded. On a nearby terminal, Pelletier reluctantly brought up the digital schematics. Traoré pointed to a large section at the end of the hall. "The plans show a storage bay here, but the wall is solid." "A last-minute architectural change, sir, for structural integrity," Pelletier stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. Ibrahim Traoré turned to his own security chief, Captain Diallo, who stood silently behind him. "Captain, bring me a thermal imager." Within minutes, Diallo returned. Traoré took the device and aimed it at the wall. A large, perfectly rectangular shape glowed with intense heat on the screen. It was the clear thermal signature of a massive, hidden server room. "There is a door here," Traoré stated, his voice dangerously quiet. "Open it." "Mr. President, I do not have the authorization," Pelletier protested. "That is a restricted area." "This entire building is on the soil of Burkina Faso," Ibrahim Traoré replied, his voice like flint. "I am the authorization. Open it, or my men will." Defeated, Pelletier typed a long, complex code into a concealed keypad. With a hiss of pressurized air, a section of the wall slid away, revealing not just another server room, but something else entirely. It was a sealed chamber, a cold room, bathed in a chilling blue light. In its center, isolated from the rest of the network, was a single monolithic black server, humming with an incredible silent power. Wires thick as a man's arm snaked from it into the floor. On the wall, etched in steel, were two words, Oracle Chamber. Ibrahim Traoré stepped inside, a deep sense of dread washing over him. On massive monitors that lined the walls, he saw not data storage, but complex flowing maps of the entire African continent. But these were not geographical maps. They were maps of human behavior. He saw real-time analysis of social media sentiment in Nigeria, predictive models for crop failures in the Sahel, simulations of political protests in Kenya, and charts tracking the movement of every rebel faction from Mali to Mozambique. The system wasn't just collecting data, it was using it to run predictive simulations. It was wargaming the future of Africa. "What is this?" Traoré breathed, turning to the terrified manager. "It is a risk analysis engine," Pelletier whispered. "It models future events to protect Omnilink's investments across the continent." "Protect investments?" Traoré scoffed, stepping closer to a screen. It was running a simulation labeled Sahel Famine Cascade Year 3. It modeled how a targeted disruption of fertilizer shipments, combined with a social media disinformation campaign, could trigger a famine that would destabilize 3 governments, making them desperate for foreign aid and susceptible to Omnilink's control. This wasn't a risk analysis engine. It was a weapon of digital colonialism, capable of creating chaos on a continental scale from this single hidden room. Ibrahim Traoré turned and walked out of the oracle chamber. He looked at Pelletier with cold fury. "You have sealed this facility. No one enters or leaves. You will not contact anyone. You work for me now." He then turned to his security chief. "Get me Julian Thorne on a secure video link. Now." Minutes later, the face of the billionaire CEO appeared on a portable screen, his expression one of annoyed surprise. "Mr. President, it's rather late. I trust you were impressed with our facility?" "Your facility, Mr. Thorne, contains a hidden chamber. The Oracle Chamber," Ibrahim Traoré said, his voice calm and lethal. "I am standing in it right now, and I am looking at a simulation on how to engineer a famine in my region. Explain yourself." Thorne's polite mask did not slip, but his eyes went cold. "Ah, you are more resourceful than I was led to believe. That, Mr. Traoré, is simply a proprietary tool for projecting market stability, a necessary part of modern global enterprise." "I call it a weapon of mass destabilization," Traoré countered. "A weapon you have built on my soil without my knowledge or consent." For the first time, Thorne's condescending smile appeared. "Let's be clear, Captain. That weapon, as you call it, is the most powerful socio-economic engine ever created. It ensures our investments are safe, and by extension, ensures the flow of capital that your continent so desperately needs. It is the price of admission to the 21st century, a price your predecessors were more than happy to pay." The implication was clear. Former leaders had been bought and paid for. "I am not my predecessors," Ibrahim Traoré said, "and this machine will be shut down." Thorne's smile widened, but it was devoid of all warmth. "I don't think you understand. That system is not just analyzing Africa, it is integrated into it. It controls port logistics, financial networks, and communication grids in 24 countries. Shutting it down is not like flipping a switch. It is like shutting off the patient's life support. You will trigger the very chaos you think you are preventing. I strongly advise you to walk out of that room, forget what you saw, and enjoy the gift I have given your country." The threat was absolute. Traoré was standing before a digital god, a machine that held a knife to the throat of his entire continent. He had uncovered the conspiracy, but in doing so, he had walked directly into its trap. He, Ibrahim Traoré, now had to make a choice: bow to the new digital colonial master, or fight back and risk unleashing the very apocalypse the machine was designed to create. The silence in the oracle chamber was thick with menace. On the screen, Julian Thorne's smile was a mask of cold, absolute confidence. He believed he had Ibrahim Traoré trapped, a king checkmated before the game had even truly begun. But Ibrahim Traoré was not a man who played by his opponent's rules. He had spent his life fighting asymmetrical wars, turning an enemy's strength into their most profound weakness. "You are right, Mr. Thorne," Ibrahim Traoré said, his voice surprisingly calm. "I cannot simply shut it down. That would be reckless." A flicker of triumph crossed Thorne's face. "A wise decision, Mr. President. Now, if you'll excuse." "But I can take control of it," Traoré interrupted, his words sharp as a blade. "This machine is on my soil. It runs on my nation's power grid. Its physical servers are under the control of my soldiers. You may have built the brain, but I hold the body captive." Thorne's smile finally vanished, replaced by a look of sheer disbelief, followed by a flash of fury. "You have no idea what you're tampering with. You don't have the codes, the expertise. You'll corrupt the entire network." "Then you will provide them," Traoré stated simply. "You will send a team of your top engineers, unaccompanied, to Ouagadougou within 24 hours. They will report to me. They will teach my people how this machine works. They will transfer full administrative control to the government of Burkina Faso. And the Oracle Chamber will henceforth serve the interests of Africa, not Omnilink." Thorne let out a harsh, incredulous laugh. "You are insane. That will never happen." "It's not a request," Ibrahim Traoré said, walking over to the main power conduit feeding the Oracle Chamber. He placed his hand on the emergency shutoff lever. "It's the new reality. You have 24 hours to agree. If I don't hear from you, I will begin dismantling this chamber, piece by piece, and broadcasting what I find to every news agency on the planet. Your choice, Mr. Thorne." With that, Traoré ended the call, leaving the billionaire staring at a blank screen thousands of miles away. The next few hours were the most intense of Ibrahim Traoré's presidency. He had declared war on one of the most powerful men in the world. He had seized the man's most valuable asset. Now, he had to survive the consequences. His first move was to isolate the facility completely. He brought in his most trusted unit, the elite presidential guard, to create an impenetrable security perimeter. All external network connections to the Oracle chamber were physically severed. The machine was now an island, a powerful mind trapped in a box. His second move was to summon a small, clandestine team of Africa's brightest young minds, a cybersecurity prodigy from Ghana, a network architect from Rwanda, and a data scientist from Burkina Faso's own University of Ouagadougou, a brilliant young woman named Kemi Adebayo. Ibrahim Traoré has given us the impossible task of taming a god, Kemi said, her eyes wide as she took in the Oracle chamber. This system's architecture, it's decades beyond anything I've ever seen. It's designed to be impenetrable. Nothing is impenetrable, Traoré countered, his faith in them absolute. It was built by men. It can be understood by men and women. Your task is to learn its language. I will keep Thorn's forces at bay. You will deliver me the keys to his kingdom. Thorn's retaliation was swift and brutal. It did not come in the form of soldiers, but as a silent, digital plague. The next morning, the port of Abidjan, a critical trade hub for Burkina Faso, ground to a halt. The automated cranes stopped working, the container tracking system crashed, and shipping manifests vanished. It was a digital strangulation, a clear message from Thorn. I can starve your country without firing a single shot. Simultaneously, a flood of sophisticated disinformation hit social media across West Africa. Deepfake videos appeared showing Ibrahim Traoré making inflammatory statements against neighboring countries. False news reports spread panic about a non-existent cholera outbreak originating in Burkina Faso. It was the famine cascade simulation, activated in real time. His own ministers began to panic. "Mr. President, we must reconsider," his finance minister pleaded. "Our economy will collapse in a week. We must release the facility." But Ibrahim Traoré held firm. He addressed the nation, not with denials, but with the raw truth. He went on national television and revealed the existence of the Oracle chamber. He explained the digital blackmail, the manufactured chaos. "They believe they can break our spirit with fear," Traoré told his people, his voice ringing with defiance. "They are wrong. A snake that has its head pinned to the ground may still thrash its tail, but it has already lost the fight. We have the head of the snake right here in Ouagadougou." His speech had a galvanizing effect. The people of Burkina Faso rallied behind him. Volunteers organized convoys to move goods by land, bypassing the paralyzed port. Tech-savvy youth launched a counter-disinformation campaign, exposing the deepfakes and creating a national firewall of digital solidarity. Back in the Oracle chamber, the pressure was immense. Kemi Adebayo and her team worked around the clock, fueled by coffee and patriotic fervor. They were fighting a ghost in the machine. The system was fighting back, actively trying to lock them out, hiding its core programming in nested layers of quantum encryption. On the 23rd hour of the deadline, as the nation held its breath, Julian Thorn made his move. He didn't send the engineers. Instead, a sleek, unmarked corporate jet landed at a private airstrip just across the border. A small team of mercenaries disembarked, the best money could buy. Their mission: infiltrate the data hub, eliminate Ibrahim Traoré, and liberate the Oracle. But Ibrahim Traoré had anticipated this. His intelligence had tracked the flight from the moment it left its base in Europe. When the mercenaries crossed the border under the cover of darkness, they did not find a sleeping country. They walked directly into a meticulously planned ambush laid by Ibrahim Traoré's presidential guard. The firefight was short. The mercenaries, trained for surgical strikes, were unprepared for a conventional battle against a determined, well-led military force. At that exact moment, Kemi Adebayo let out a cry of triumph from inside the Oracle chamber. "I'm in!" she shouted, her face illuminated by cascading lines of code on her screen. "I've bypassed the master encryption. I've found the system's core command. We have control." Ibrahim Traoré walked into the chamber. He looked at the main screen where the map of Africa was still showing the chaos orchestrated by Thorn. "Can you reverse it?" he asked Kemi. "I can do better than that," she replied, her fingers flying across the keyboard. The system is designed to respond to commands from its designated prime user. I can't delete Thorn's access, but I can override it. I can issue a countercommand. Do it, Traoré ordered. Kemi typed a single, elegant line of code. On the main screen, a new directive flashed, overriding all previous simulations. Optimize for continental stability and sovereign prosperity. The effect was instantaneous and breathtaking. Across the continent, the digital plague began to recede. The logistics at the port of Abidjan untangled themselves as the system automatically rerouted traffic and restored data. The disinformation campaigns were suddenly hit with massive, coordinated takedowns as the Oracle identified and neutralized the bot networks driving them. The machine, designed as a weapon of colonial control, had just been turned into a guardian of African sovereignty by its intended victim. Thousands of miles away, Julian Thorn watched in horror as his multi-trillion-dollar weapon was turned against him. He had lost. He had underestimated the will of one man. He had underestimated Ibrahim Traoré. As dawn broke over Ouagadougou, a new era had begun. Ibrahim Traoré now controlled the most powerful socio-economic tool on the planet. But with this incredible power came a terrifying new responsibility. He had tamed the beast, but now he had to decide how to use it. And he knew that the forces he had just defeated would not simply accept their loss. They would regroup, re-strategize, and they would come for him again, not with digital ghosts or mercenaries, but with something far more dangerous. The war was far from over. A new, more treacherous battle was just beginning. The first week of Ibrahim Traoré's control over the Oracle Chamber was a revelation. It was like seeing the world through the eyes of a god. With Kemi Adebayo and her team acting as his interpreters, Traoré began to wield the machine not as a weapon, but as a tool for liberation. He used its predictive models to preemptively distribute grain to regions the system identified as being at risk of drought, averting a food crisis before it could begin. He used its network analysis to uncover vast corruption schemes in the customs departments of 3 allied nations, providing their leaders with irrefutable evidence to clean their own houses. The Oracle, once a tool of colonial oppression, was rapidly becoming the central nervous system of a new, unified African strategy. But Ibrahim Traoré knew this quiet revolution would not go unanswered. Julian Thorn and the shadowy consortium he represented, a group Kemi had uncovered and labeled the Atlas Group, were not the type to accept defeat. They had lost control of their most powerful asset. Their next move would be desperate and deadly. The attack came during a state visit to Lagos, Nigeria, where Ibrahim Traoré was meeting with a council of West African leaders to present his vision for a shared sovereign data network powered by the Oracle. The mood was electric. For the first time, African leaders were discussing their continent's future using data and predictive models that they controlled, free from the biased influence of Western institutions. As his convoy sped through the crowded streets of Lagos, a massive explosion ripped through a bridge just 100 meters ahead. The motorcade screeched to a halt. It was a perfectly timed bombing, designed to trap them. Immediately, sniper fire erupted from the surrounding high-rise buildings, pinning down his security detail. This was not a random terrorist attack. It was a professional military-grade assassination attempt. "Get him out of here," Captain Diallo roared, shoving Ibrahim Traoré into the armored vehicle as his men returned fire. But their escape route was cut off. It was a kill box. Back in Ouagadougou, inside the Oracle Chamber, Kemi Adebayo watched the unfolding events in horror. The system had not predicted this. "How is this possible?" she muttered. "The Oracle runs constant threat assessments. It should have seen this." She frantically began digging into the system's logs, and then she found it. A digital ghost, a hidden backdoor left behind by Thorn's creators. It wasn't a control code, but a blind spot protocol. The Atlas Group could feed the Oracle false data, creating a small, invisible bubble where their own operations would be completely hidden from the system's analysis. They had used the Oracle's own power to make themselves invisible to it. But they had made one mistake. The protocol hid their actions, but it couldn't hide the reactions. As Kemi scanned Lagos's citywide surveillance network through the Oracle, she saw that the traffic grid for miles around the attack site had been mysteriously and artificially rerouted an hour before the explosion. The assassins had cleared their own escape routes in advance. The Oracle couldn't see the killers, but it could see the digital shadow they cast. Captain Traoré, Kemi's voice crackled through his secure earpiece amidst the gunfire. They have a blind spot in the system, but I can see their escape path. They've cleared a route heading east towards the industrial sector. They are funneling you into a secondary trap. This was the information Ibrahim Traoré needed. He was not just a president, he was a soldier, a strategist. Diallo, he commanded. They want us to go east. We are going west, straight through the blockade. It was a move of stunning audacity. Instead of retreating or falling into the secondary trap, Traoré ordered his driver to ram the lead vehicle of the blockade. The armored presidential car, a veritable tank, surged forward, smashing through the obstacle with a deafening crunch of metal. They broke free from the kill box, leaving the assassins' carefully laid plan in chaos. The failed assassination attempt sent shockwaves through the continent. It was a blatant act of war against a sitting head of state. But more importantly for Traoré, it revealed a critical vulnerability. He could not trust the Oracle completely. The ghost in the machine was still there. When he returned to Ouagadougou, his resolve was harder than ever. He gathered Kemi and his top military advisors. "They tried to kill me because they are afraid of this," he said, gesturing to the humming servers of the Oracle chamber. "They have shown us that they have a key to a back door. We must change the locks." But changing the locks on a system this complex was impossible. The blind spot was woven into its core architecture. It couldn't be removed without crashing the entire system. "We can't remove it," Kemi said, after days of fruitless work. "But maybe we can use it." Her eyes lit up with a brilliant, dangerous idea. The blind spot protocol works by creating a data vacuum. The Oracle is programmed to ignore these vacuums. But what if we reprogrammed it? What if we taught the Oracle that a data vacuum is not a blind spot, but the most important threat indicator of all? It was a paradigm shift. They would turn the enemy's greatest advantage, their invisibility, into a giant, flashing red light. They would teach the machine to hunt for shadows. While Kemi's team worked on this audacious plan, Ibrahim Traoré prepared his counter-move on the global stage. He knew he couldn't just expose Julian Thorne. The billionaire was too powerful, too well protected by layers of corporate law and political influence. He had to expose the entire Atlas Group. Using the Oracle's vast data mining capabilities, they began to trace the financial and communication links between Thorne and other powerful figures. The picture that emerged was terrifying. The Atlas Group was not just a collection of businessmen. It was a shadow government, with members at the highest levels of global finance, media, and industry. They saw Africa not as a continent of 1.4 billion people, but as a portfolio of assets to be managed, controlled, and if necessary, liquidated for their own profit. The Oracle, now retrained to hunt for shadows, located the group's central communication hub. It was not in a corporate headquarters in London or New York. It was on a private, heavily fortified island in the Caribbean. This was their sanctuary, their command center. "They feel safe there," Ibrahim Traoré said, looking at the satellite images of the island. "They believe they are untouchable." He then made a decision that would stun his advisors and change the nature of the conflict. He wasn't going to launch a military attack. He was going to use Thorne's own weapon, information, against him. He instructed Kemi to use the Oracle to do something it had never been designed for, to look inward. He had her analyze all of Julian Thorne's personal and corporate data, his encrypted communications, his financial transactions. And there, buried deep in the records, they found his weakness. Thorne had a daughter, estranged from him, who was a fiercely independent investigative journalist known for taking on powerful corporations. She despised everything her father stood for. Ibrahim Traoré did not contact the journalist himself. He simply had the Oracle leak a single, encrypted file to her. It was a file containing irrefutable proof of the existence of the Atlas Group, the Oracle Chamber, and most damningly, the audio recording of the assassination attempt in Lagos, which had been captured by a nearby traffic camera. He gave her the truth, knowing she would know what to do with it. He had baited the trap. He had retrained his weapon. Now he would wait for the shadow government to make its next move, knowing that this time When they tried to hide in the darkness itself would scream their name. The hunter was about to become the hunted. The leak was an atomic bomb detonated in the heart of the global elite. Julian Thorne's daughter, armed with the irrefutable evidence provided by Ibrahim Traoré, published a series of articles that ripped the veil of secrecy from the Atlas Group. The world was stunned by the revelations. A shadow cabal manipulating nations, a digital superweapon called the Oracle, and a failed assassination attempt on a sovereign leader. The scandal was too big to ignore, too explosive to be contained. Global markets trembled. Governments, implicated by the leak, were thrown into chaos. Julian Thorne and his co-conspirators became the most hunted men on the planet, not by law enforcement, but by the very systems of power they had once controlled. But a cornered beast is the most dangerous. Ibrahim Traoré knew that exposing them was not the end of the war. It was the beginning of the final, most desperate battle. He watched the Oracle, now his vigilant sentinel, waiting for the Atlas Group's response. The attack, when it came, was unlike anything they had anticipated. It was not digital, nor was it military. It was biological. It began quietly, with reports of a strange, aggressive agricultural blight in a northern province of Burkina Faso. Within 48 hours, it had spread to 2 neighboring countries. This was no natural disease. Crops withered and died in a matter of hours, turning vibrant fields into black, barren wastelands. The Oracle, analyzing soil and atmospheric data from regional sensors, identified the pathogen, a genetically engineered fungus designed to be hyper-aggressive and airborne. It was a targeted, crop-killing plague. It was the famine cascade simulation made real in its most horrific form. The Atlas Group's endgame was now terrifyingly clear. If they couldn't have Africa's resources, nobody would. They were willing to burn the continent's breadbasket to the ground, creating a catastrophe of such epic proportions that it would shatter Traoré's government and plunge the region into a dark age of starvation and conflict. An emergency council of West African leaders convened via secure video link, their faces etched with panic. "Ibrahim, this is beyond us," the president of Ghana exclaimed. "My country's grain reserve will be gone in 3 weeks. We must appeal for international aid." "No," Ibrahim Traoré's voice cut through the fear, steady and resolute. "That is exactly what they want. They want us to panic. They want us to turn to the very international institutions they control. They want to swoop in as our saviors, offering their aid in exchange for our submission. We will not give them the satisfaction." But what was the alternative? They were fighting an invisible, fast-moving plague. It was then that Kemi Adebayo, monitoring the Oracle's data streams, found the anomaly. "Mr. President," she called out, her voice urgent, "the fungus, it has a flaw. It's spreading too fast. Its genetic structure is unstable. According to the Oracle's projections, it's designed to burn itself out in 6 to 8 weeks, but by then the damage will be done. The harvest will be lost." "But there's more," she continued, her fingers flying across her console. "The blight is not spreading uniformly. There are pockets of land, small, seemingly random farms, that are completely untouched. The Oracle is cross-referencing the soil composition of these safe zones right now." Ibrahim Traoré leaned in, his mind racing. He remembered the plain, the smuggled soil, the life-giving microbes. "Dr. Soro," he breathed, remembering the brilliant elderly scientist. He immediately dispatched a helicopter to bring Dr. Aminata Soro to the Oracle chamber. The old woman, frail but with eyes of fire, studied the data Kemi presented. A slow smile spread across her face. "Of course," Dr. Soro whispered in awe. "It's the native microbes, the ones they tried to steal. The genetically engineered fungus is an invasive species, but our native soil in its purest form has its own immune system. These extremophile microbes are fighting back. They are creating a natural biological shield." The solution was breathtakingly simple, yet logistically monumental. They had the cure. The cure was Burkina Faso's own sacred earth. "They tried to steal our soul," Ibrahim Traoré declared to the council of panicked leaders. "And now, that very soul will be our salvation." What followed was one of the most extraordinary mobilizations in African history. A plan conceived by Ibrahim Traoré and powered by the Oracle's logistical genius. He called it Operation Mother Earth. The Oracle identified every single plot of land that was naturally resistant to the blight. Using the system's vast data network, Traoré's government launched a massive, continent-wide public information campaign. Instructions were broadcast over radio, sent via text messages, and spread by community leaders. The message was simple. Farmers were instructed to go to the blessed farms, the resistant pockets of land, and bring back sacks of that soil. They were to mix it with water and spray it on their own fields. It was a low-tech, people-powered immunization campaign, spreading the protective microbes from farm to farm. The Atlas Group watched in disbelief as their high-tech plague was defeated by what looked like an ancient farming ritual. But it was working. Within days, the spread of the blight slowed. Then it stopped. Then, miraculously, it began to recede as the native microbes reclaimed the land. Enraged and desperate, the Atlas Group launched their final, personal attack against Ibrahim Traoré. They activated a network of sleeper agents inside Ouagadougou, a team of assassins tasked with one simple mission: storm the presidential palace and kill Traoré. But they had forgotten about the Oracle's new directive. The system was now hunting for shadows. The sudden flurry of encrypted communications activating the sleeper cell was the data vacuum the Oracle had been taught to find. It lit up on Kemi's screen like a supernova. "Mr. President, they're coming for you," Kemi warned. "A 5-man team, moving on the palace now. The Oracle has their route." This time there was no firefight at the palace. Ibrahim Traoré was not a man who waited for the enemy to come to him. Using the Oracle's real-time tracking, he and his elite presidential guard intercepted the assassins in a narrow market street. The confrontation was swift and decisive. The hunters became the hunted, captured alive by Traoré's men. Under interrogation, the leader of the hit squad revealed the Atlas Group's ultimate destination, the Caribbean island. They were retreating to their fortress to wait out the global storm they had created. Ibrahim Traoré now had his target. He had defended his people. He had cured the plague. He had captured their assassins. Now he was going to end the war. He stood before the Oracle, no longer just the president of Burkina Faso, but the de facto strategic commander for a continent fighting for its survival. "Kemi," he said, his voice resonating with quiet, absolute authority. "Tell me everything the Oracle knows about that island. Its defenses, its communications, its weaknesses." The Atlas Group wanted a war. It's time to take the battle to their doorstep. The island fortress of the Atlas Group, a private sanctuary named Ethelgard, was the most secure location on the planet. It was a masterpiece of paranoia, protected by a private navy, a state-of-the-art missile defense shield, and an army of mercenaries. It was designed to be impervious to any conventional military assault. Julian Thorne and the remnants of his cabal had retreated there, believing they were untouchable, gods on their digital Olympus, ready to wait out the storm and rise again from the ashes. But Ibrahim Traoré had no intention of launching a conventional attack. That was the old way of war. He possessed a weapon far more potent than missiles or soldiers, the Oracle. And for the final act of this global drama, he would wield it not with brute force, but with the devastating precision of a surgeon's scalpel. "They have built a physical fortress," Ibrahim Traoré announced to his small war council, which now included Kemi, Dr. Soro, and his top military commanders. "But every fortress has a supply line. Every god has worshippers who must be paid. We will not break down their walls. We will dismantle their empire, brick by invisible brick, from right here in this room." Thus began the final campaign, a silent, global economic assault orchestrated by Ibrahim Traoré from the Oracle Chamber. It was breathtaking in its scope and audacity. First, using the Oracle's complete access to global financial networks, they targeted the Atlas Group's wealth. They didn't steal it. That would be a simple crime. Instead, they executed a series of complex, automated microtransactions, rerouting billions of dollars from the group's offshore shell corporations into a newly created Pan-African Development Fund. The transfers were so small and spread across so many jurisdictions that they were virtually untraceable, a death by 1,000 digital cuts. The Atlas Group's vast fortune began to evaporate, their lifeblood draining away into the very continent they sought to control. Next, Ibrahim Traoré targeted their power. The Oracle identified every politician, every judge, every media mogul on the Atlas Group's payroll. It didn't leak their names to the press. Instead, It sent anonymous, encrypted packages of evidence directly to their political rivals, their disgruntled subordinates, and independent judicial watchdogs. Within days, governments were rocked by resignations, corporations saw their boards overthrown in shareholder revolts, and media empires were shattered by internal rebellions. The web of influence that had taken the Atlas Group decades to build was unraveled in less than a week. Finally, Ibrahim Traoré targeted the fortress itself. The Oracle infiltrated the island's complex logistics network. The mercenaries guarding Ethelgard suddenly found their salary payments hadn't arrived. The supply ships carrying their gourmet food and advanced weaponry were mysteriously rerouted to Somalia to deliver humanitarian aid. The island's automated defense systems began to flicker and fail as their software updates were corrupted with nonsense code. On the island of Ethelgard, Julian Thorne watched his world crumble. His fortune was vanishing. His political puppets were being exposed and deposed. His guards were on the verge of mutiny. He was trapped in his own gilded cage, completely isolated. He had been surgically disconnected from the world he thought he ruled. It was then that Ibrahim Traoré made his final, most audacious move. He didn't send a message. He went himself. In a move that stunned the world, the president of Burkina Faso, accompanied only by a small diplomatic escort and a team of African Union observers, flew to the Caribbean. His plane landed on the island's airstrip, a right secured through the now cooperative local government. The once fearsome mercenaries, unpaid and abandoned, offered no resistance. Ibrahim Traoré walked, calm and composed in his military uniform, through the opulent grounds of the fortress and into the lavish command center where a haggard, defeated Julian Thorne awaited him. "How?" Thorne whispered, his voice a dry rasp. "How did you do this?" "You tried to fight a war for territory and resources," Ibrahim Traoré said, his voice echoing in the vast, silent room. "That is the old world. I fought a war for an idea. The idea that Africa is not a balance sheet, that our people are not assets, and that our future is not for sale." He placed a single data drive on the polished table between them. "This contains all the evidence of your crimes. A copy has been delivered to the International Criminal Court. Another is secured by the African Union. There is no escape." He looked around the room, at the screens that once plotted the fate of nations, now dark and lifeless. "You built this place as a monument to your power," Traoré said, "but you forgot one thing. Power that is hoarded is fragile. True power is shared. You built a fortress, but you have no people. I have a nation. I have a continent." The transfer of the Atlas Group's leadership to The Hague was a quiet affair, a footnote to the global upheaval they had caused. The Pan-African Development Fund, now swollen with their confiscated wealth, began funding infrastructure, education, and healthcare projects across the continent, all coordinated with the benevolent efficiency of the Oracle. Months later, Ibrahim Traoré stood once more in the Oracle chamber in Ouagadougou, but it was being dismantled. Kemi and her team were carefully disassembling the monolithic black server. "Sir, are you sure about this?" Kemi asked, a note of sadness in her voice. "We could do so much good with it." "One man should not have this power," Ibrahim Traoré replied, looking at the now empty pedestal where the heart of the machine had once rested. "No single person and no single nation. Its purpose is served." He had made a decision. The Oracle's core programming was to be broken up, its functions decentralized and distributed among regional African Union data centers. It would no longer be a single, all-powerful brain, but a collaborative network, transparent and managed by a consortium of nations. He was giving the power away. As he walked out of the silent chamber, he paused and looked back at the young team of African engineers who had helped him save their continent. He had not only defeated a global conspiracy, he had ignited a spark in a new generation. He had proven that Africa's greatest resource was not the minerals in its soil or the microbes in its earth, but the unyielding spirit and brilliant minds of its people. The world had been changed forever, not by a machine, but by the courage of a single leader who dared to believe in a different future. The age of the Oracle was over. The age of Africa had just begun.